Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to the CSLC 2024. My name is Andrew Cornelius, and I am currently serve as the Director of Campus Life here at Northwest Nazarene University, and I'm excited to have you join the session. Hopefully, this day has been full of a lot of great information and time for you to reflect on joy and the role that joy plays at our colleges and universities. And so shout out to you for being student leaders and giving your time and effort and energy to creating a great community wherever you're located. And to my student affairs professionals on the call, the work is good, it's hard, but I do believe that we are making a kingdom impact. And so today I really want to spend some time to talk to you all about what it means to create great programming with this in mind. It's bigger than you. How do we, as student leaders and student affairs professionals, negotiate the past and reimagine the future in our programming? And so today we're going to spend some time thinking and addressing and talking about what it means to hold the past, the present, and what does it mean to create a lasting legacy when it comes to planning our events and activities. So, as you all probably know, our institutions are rooted in tradition. The events that you create, the programs that you implement, they have probably been around for a while. You have probably attended them maybe every year you've been at the university. You know that they have history and precedence, and there are some staple things in our events and activities that we should not touch. For a lot of students, these activities and programs reignite memories. If you talk to alumni, they still reminisce about what it means to have participated in that program, that leadership opportunity and experience. Because we believe, and I believe, that memories help shape the communal experience that I think we're all trying to capture at each of our institutions. See, campus programming during, after, and before events were created and implemented, they probably had intention. The student body at some point when this event or program activity was created was situated in a current cultural context that drew forth this great event, activity, and program. And so we need to keep in mind as we are continuing to redo or recreate these events to know where the event has been in the past, maybe why it was created, how can we bring it better into the future. So I want us today to think critically about our campus traditions, because again, the campus community that created these events and programs and activities, student leadership experiences, they were developed out of a need. Staff, students, probably were sitting in a room similar to where you are now thinking, we have this need, we see this as a need in our student body. How can we as student leaders address it? How can we as student leaders take time, energy, and effort in facilitating building a bridge to the students and the university? So for me, I like to, when I'm working with my students on my campus, part of the joy of running events, activities, student government, student senate, working with clubs and orgs, is I like to let them jump back into history a little bit. If you walk into our student government offices, you will see about 60 years worth of yearbooks lined up on one of our shelves. And as the yearbook editor comes in and they start dreaming and ideating, it also is time for us to open the pages to the past and to really evaluate what was going on. Can we get a snapshot of what student life was like back in 1980 or 1990, right? Sometimes we'll take them over to the library archives and we'll understand what it means through our archival data in the institution, what was going on campus in our past. Hopefully, your libraries have some sort of documentation of student life, student experience throughout the years. One great ways that I think is an untapped resource in student life, student affairs, student development, whatever you choose to call where your student leaders land, is engaging our faculty or our alumni, right? They have been in the institution, they have talked about it, they have led events, they have in the past maybe were the ones that started the event. And so to understand campus traditions, You may want to invite an alumni in, maybe a former student leader that you know well. It doesn't have to be 40, 50 years back. It could be as early as 4 or 5 years back. What was going on? Asking them questions. What did you guys do to help create involving and sense of belonging at these events? You can also tap a great resource of faculty and staff at the institution who've been there for a while. I don't know about you, but my campus is full of people who have spent many generations and decades here, whose grandkids have gone to school here, who currently work here, whose parents went to school here. And so talking to them, what was it like to maybe host an event that your campus still puts on to this day? And then finally, go back to social media pages. Early Facebook adopters should have some images of what was happening on campus during that time. And I want to challenge you to think about one more thing. I think it's easy for us to get pretty centrally located in our own institutions. I want us to move beyond the scope of our own institutions. Take a step for a second. I want you to answer this question. If I'm looking back at archival data, if I'm looking back at the history of events within the institution, what was happening in broader culture and society? Right? What music was popular? What was happening with media? What cultural issues were going on? I think that can reveal to us the need that some of these campus events in the past have filled. And so I'd encourage you to go back to the past, evaluate the context in which these events were developed, or maybe how they were sustained through time. So we understand our campuses are rooted in tradition, and we find joy and we unravel joy when we take a step back and we learn about where the event and program and activity has gone before we have participated and led the event. The next question I want to pose is, do you know the needs of your campus? So we have the past in mind. We have all of this great information and excitement, and we have this maybe narrative of an event or program. And then all of a sudden it has been done and redone, and we have yet to ask the question, does this still work? Well, how do I know it still works? Well, I want you to ask yourself this question first. Do I know the needs of my current students? Do I know and understand their needs? Do I know what they're excited about, what they're interested in? Do I know what they're dissatisfied in? Right? These are some of the things that I think can begin to spark a creative imagination when it comes to recognizing and reconciling the past and the future. So I've listed here on this slide some ways that I think you as students and student life staff can begin to evaluate the needs of campus. Needs assessments are always great. And I'm not talking about this long, drawn-out assessment, 5, 6, 10 questions. What did you participate in your first few weeks on campus? Who were some of the student leaders that you got in contact with? On a Likert scale, using scale from 1 to 5, 1 being not likely at all to 5 being very likely, how excited are you about attending this event this semester? Or let them be short, open-ended questions. What was your favorite part about the first week activities on school? Or what was your favorite part about RA training? What was your favorite part about the fall event or program that we've put on? Also, what are some things that we could be doing better, right? I went through a few weeks of school. How can we best improve, right? We've made it a habit on our institution that after the large chunks of event programming at the beginning of each semester, we take intentional time to do a short assessment to see what the needs are. And then we adjust accordingly, right? So if we know that our students aren't necessarily feeling interpersonally connected, okay, well, some of the programming pieces of our events are going to have some time to build and foster interpersonal connection. It doesn't have to be rocket science. Of course, read your staff in, your professional staff who work with you about the questions that you want to ask, but brainstorm, do I really know the needs of my student body? And I think that will help shape how you engage with your campus traditions and past. Another area is that you can consult faculty and staff to know the needs, right? They're working day in and day out with students. And you might want to frequent your favorite professor's office and be like, hey, what are some trends that you're seeing that students need right now? It doesn't have to have sensitive information in it, but it's the middle of the semester. How can we create energy and buy-in still with our student experience? For the staff, hey, we're seeing this need, right? Let's address it with maybe some events and programming to help support all the students at the institution. One of my favorite resources, and hopefully you're finding time through other staff members, is to reach out to other people across campuses. We often talk about this in the professional space, but I think as a student space, if you can connect with other student leaders to learn about what is happening at their institutions, it can create some great insight about commonalities, shared themes, shared interests, and you guys can begin to brainstorm and develop ideas and plans to help engage the student body. Again, one of the best competencies that we can teach you as students and as staff is to be able to network well. And so, one way to know the needs of your campus is to know the needs of what is happening nationally and globally in higher education campuses across the country and the world. Right? So, how are you gaining tangible steps and professional networking and development by talking to other student leaders, other people who are involved in campus events, activities, and programs to learn about ways that you can better your event offerings while at the same time getting to share what you're passionate about at your home institution? So I really am a big proponent of students reaching out to other students across the country. If you need any contact information about how to get in contact, the CSLC collective staff people are pretty tight knit. It's a pretty tight knit community. So if you're really interested in learning more about what institutions are doing across campus, I'd reach out to your advisors, your student life leaders to get some more information on that. And then ultimately, you have been hired, elected, appointed in your position because the institution in some way, shape, or form believes that you know and have the tools to serve what your current student body needs. And so I tell my students this all the time, and hopefully this is also put in your head well. You can trust yourself. You know your friends, you know your peers. You know those who are engaged, and you probably know some that aren't engaged. Trust yourself. Your students have put trust in you. Your administrators have put trust in you. Trust yourself to know and understand the deep complexities and nuances of your current student body. So, trust yourself. Conduct a needs assessment. Consult with faculty and staff. Collaborate with other institutions, and ultimately trust yourself because you have been given the tools and you have the relationships available to you to understand what is happening on campus. So when you go to plan an event with these different tools in mind, I believe that you can create an incredible event and experience for your fellow students. So these are some I describe this as with tradition to your current student body. How do we bridge the gap between what has happened in the past, what we can do now, and how are we going to live well in the future? So, some ways to adjust your events, programming, activity is maybe instead of changing the whole event or the whole program, how can I create small details that have large impact? So, for instance, maybe instead of throwing a silent disco where no one's really interpersonally interacting, you have a part silent disco, but you also have another space where students can maybe sit and play board games, or they can chit chat with one another, or they provide snacks, an opportunity for everyone to get together and just have some communal time. So instead of getting rid of the whole event because maybe there's some parts of it aren't working, look at the event in small segments. Right? Maybe the entry into the program needs to be different. Maybe the way that data is tracked needs to be different. I don't know. Get creative. Don't think about just tossing the whole event out because something isn't working. Maybe just adjust and fine tune the details that are. And that with tradition, right, protects the integrity of the event, but also may solve for current student need. When it comes to event promotion, can I find some archival pictures, promotional materials, right? How can I bridge the past and the future? And one way to do this is through media. And so can I find old yearbooks and old archival data at my institution and pair it alongside the current theme or marketing materials of an event, right? That's one way to tell the story of your institution, right? That this has been going on before you have gotten here. And now you are stepping into a story that has been unfolding before you got here. And then you are going to leave a legacy on this place. And so this is a really tangible way for you to bridge the past and the future. I think it's also fun just for students to see how the event has developed and changed over time. And so, again, maybe try to find some promotional pieces, some marketing material to attach on your current marketing and promotional products. And then the question that should always be on the front of your minds as we are developing events and programs and activities is how can I implement the current needs of students to fit in the scope of the activity? So with all this data that I've collected, with all this consultation with faculty and staff and with alumni, What does it look like for me to make adjustments to my event or program or activity, however you want to phrase it? Right? Do we know that this is happening on campus? Do we know this certain issue or the certain trend is happening on campus? And how are we going to begin to address that? And so this should be the question on the front of our minds whenever we are programming. And this is what gets at the big question. Does this still work? Right? Does this event, program, or activity or leadership development opportunity still work? I don't know if we ask that question too much. And if so, we need to ask it more often. Does this still work, and does it still have high impact? And then you and your team, your student leadership teams, your different breakout groups, your different staff people need to understand, what does success mean? How are you defining success in this season? Because historical success maybe not mean present success. And so you as a team need to come onto a shared agreement of what it looks like and how you are going to define success for your current season. And then finally, I always challenge my students to look outside of the institution. I think often we can get in a bubble with our institution. How can we understand what is happening in broader society to inform the events, programs, and activities? Do we need to have conversations around certain topics? Do we need to go partner with a nonprofit because we see a rising need in our community? Right? And so we take the internal and then we take the external ecology and where the institution is located, and we begin to create and develop programming that addresses both need, societal need, and our own student body need. So to wrap up, I want to leave with some practical next steps. Hopefully I've given you some needs assessment, reaching out to professor, faculty, and staff member, connect with other students at institutions. But I want you to leave with 2 practical questions, 2 insights. Prepare the table. We oftentimes get in routine. It becomes mundane. We do the same things for the same events over and over and over again. But with this needs assessment in mind, with creating data and opportunity to learn about your students, my question is, who do you need at the table to create big impact and impactful programming? Who outside of student life needs to be at your table to address student need? What resources do you need? Is it monetary? Is it physical resources? Is it more people? These are the questions that I would begin to ask with your team. Who needs to be at the table? And how am I providing pathways and accessibility to that table? And then trust yourself and enact the vision. Because it's one thing for us to know the past, serve the current, and there's a whole other thing to think legacy and sustainability. So with all these changes to the event that I am making, with my current student needs in mind, how can I sustain these changes for a thriving future? How can I leave programs and activities with room for the next generation to reimagine what it looks like for student engagement on your campus? So, who needs to be at the table? And I want you to write down lists. If you have an event coming up or a program coming up, who needs to be at the table? Do we need the marketing department there to help us spread the word? Do we need our bookstore there to help get promotional materials sold? Right? These are some of the things that I think we often just forget about because we've been doing it for so long. What people do we want at the table? What key students do we need at the table to make sure it's successful? And then finally, think bigger than yourself. It's bigger than you. Think about what this event or program activity is going to look like in the future. And how are you as an alumni, as you graduate from this institution, going to allow space to dream alongside the future? Not saying, oh, this is how we did it back then. It was so much better back then. But honoring those in the future who are coming after you and being excited and pumped for the ways that they are adjusting to their current student need. So I hope this has been beneficial. Again, I believe there is deep, deep joy in celebrating the past, serving the needs of current students, and then imagining the future for what is to come on your institution and your campus. Thank you so much for your time. If you need my contact information, then please feel free to reach out. Again, I'm super excited as you begin to ideate and dream over the coming weeks what it looks like for you to better engage your current student body.